3 years ago, I stood backstage at a TEDx event, my hands clammy, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Every nerve in my body screamed that I was about to fail, that I'd forget every word of my speech. But instead of resisting the fear, I tried something different. I whispered to myself, what if this energy isn't my enemy, but my fuel? That shift changed everything. I walked onto that stage, delivered my talk, and watched it go viral. Fear wasn't my downfall. It was my power. And I'm not alone. Studies show that 85% of people experience fear before major milestones. The other 15%? They're probably lying. But what if fear isn't a signal to stop, but a sign that you're about to do something meaningful? Let's explore how fear, at its core, is an ancient superpower, and how you can hack it. Fear isn't just an emotion. It's an ancient survival tool wired deep into your brain. The moment danger lurks, your amygdala takes over, triggering the classic fight-or-flight response. Your heart races, senses sharpen, and your body preps for action. Evolution's way of saving our ancestors from saber-toothed tigers. But in today's world, those tigers look different. A high-stakes presentation, an important deadline, or even a first date can trigger the same biological response. Here's where science gets interesting. The Yerkes-Dodson law reveals that fear isn't always the enemy. Too little, and you're unmotivated. Too much, and you freeze. But just the right amount? That's the Goldilocks zone, where fear sharpens your focus, like a firewalker locked in on every step. Fear isn't a stop sign, it's a GPS signal telling you, this moment matters. Now, what if you could channel it like the world's top performers? Let's dive into real-life case studies of people who turned fear into their competitive edge. The world's top performers don't eliminate fear, they harness it. Take Michael Phelps, for example. Before every race, his nerves spiked. But instead of letting them consume him, he used them to sharpen his focus. His coach called it controlled aggression, a way to turn pre-race jitters into peak performance. Science backs this up. Adrenaline, triggered by fear, boosts reaction time and strength. But fear isn't just for athletes. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter in cafes, racing against the fear of failure and financial struggle. That urgency fueled her creativity, pushing her to complete a story that changed literature forever. Then there's Elon Musk, who embraces fear differently. He once said, "If something's important enough, you do it even if you're scared." For him, the fear of stagnation outweighs the fear of risk. These high achievers prove one thing: fear isn't a barrier. It's a powerful fuel. But how can you apply this in your own life? Let's explore practical tools to hack your fear and make it work for you. If fear is fuel, how do you control it? The key is learning to hack it. First, reframe the narrative. Instead of saying, "I'm terrified," try, "I'm energized." Neuroscience shows that language reshapes brain pathways. When you change your words, your brain rewires how it processes fear. Next, use the 90-second rule. When fear strikes, your body floods with cortisol. But here's the trick. That chemical surge burns off in just 90 seconds. If you breathe through it instead of panicking, the fear fades. Another powerful tool is fear mapping. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Is it failure, judgment, uncertainty? Then, challenge it. What's the worst that could happen? Odds are, you'll realize that most fears aren't life-threatening. Finally, use micro-exposure. If public speaking terrifies you, don't start with a packed auditorium. Start small. Speak to a friend, then a small group, then a larger one. Each step rewires your brain to see fear as manageable. Now, while these hacks work for everyday fears, sometimes fear is misleading. Let's look at when fear is lying to you and how to recognize false alarms. Not all fear is useful. Sometimes it straight up lies to you. One of the biggest culprits? Imposter syndrome. That little voice whispers, "You don't belong here," making you doubt your abilities. The fix? List past wins when fear told you the same lie. And remember how wrong it was. Another common trap is catastrophizing, where your brain turns a small mistake into a life-ruining disaster. A simple hack? Play the 5 years later game. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? 5 months? Most of the time, the answer is no. And then there's social fear, the nagging worry that everyone is judging you. Reality check. 90% of people are too busy worrying about themselves to analyze your every move. Recognizing these false alarms is key to stopping fear from holding you back. But what if fear isn't just an occasional roadblock? What if it's paralyzing? Let's talk about when fear crosses the line and becomes something that needs professional help. Sometimes fear isn't just a motivator, it's a cage. If fear paralyzes you for weeks, triggers panic attacks, or makes you avoid important parts of life, it's more than just nerves. These are red flags that signal something deeper, like anxiety disorders or past trauma. Here's the truth. Self-help works for everyday fears, but it has its limits. When fear starts controlling your life, it's time to seek professional help. And that's not a weakness, it's wisdom. Therapists aren't just for crisis moments. They're skilled guides who can help you untangle fear at its roots. Think of them as mental superheroes, trained to give you tools that go beyond hacks and quick fixes. Because while fear can be harnessed, sometimes it needs healing too. But what about those who've faced their fears and turned them into power? Let's look at a real-world example of someone who transformed fear into their greatest advantage. Fear can either paralyze you or push you toward greatness. Take the story of a startup founder who faced the terrifying possibility of bankruptcy. With no budget for advertising, fear forced them to think creatively. Instead of giving up, they leaned into resourcefulness, leveraging social media, word-of-mouth marketing, and viral content strategies to build their brand. What seemed like a crisis became a breakthrough, proving that necessity truly is the mother of invention. In the founder's own words, "Fear was my compass. It showed me what I couldn't afford to lose." This isn't just about business, it's about life. Fear, when used wisely, can be a powerful guide. So how can you start using it to your advantage?